on Facebook. I'm going to hit record. Okay, well, welcome everybody to today's Empowered Women's Coaching Call. My name is Kira Love, and I have the gorgeous Meg here with me, one of my dear, dear friends. How are you today?
I'm good.
I'm so excited to have you in my office. Just so everyone knows, we are living over on Instagram as well. So we've got 3 social channels going right now, which you and I are not, like, technology is not our thing. So, well, how do I know Meg? Meg, we've been friends for a while now, and it's kind of like that soul sister friendship where we come in and out of each other's lives, but it's always the same. Time and distance doesn't change anything. I love those friendships. Not needy. It's all about giving. There's no taking. We always know each other is there. I really, really value.
I do too. I feel like you could sit at my kitchen bench anytime. Yeah. And I could sit at yours, and it'd be like.
We have the juiciest conversations too.
Straight into it.
I love our chats. Let me come this way a little bit. Maybe I can move this. We have some juicy conversations today. It's going to be one of those. One of the other things. Meg's late husband, a lot of people ask me about my MasterChef experience. Baz, beautiful Baz, in 2014, Baz sadly passed away. But before that, he actually was one of the major contributors to me getting on MasterChef, which kind of changed the course of my life in a way. That quail dish. So I was the token healthy chef on MasterChef, and they totally thought I was just the tofu queen. And in order to get in, there was a challenge, and I think I was the first person in the history of the show who not only did it successfully and executed it, but I did it in half the time that they'd ever been given. And Baz taught me that skill for the show. So
he said you're going to need something to pull out of the
bag. It did. It was just this divine intervention, really, that he showed me that dish, because they were like, what the hell? We thought you were like the tofu girl. Proud memories. Proud moment, yes. So, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start today. One thing I can say about you, Meg, I have seen Meg go through a great many storms and vice versa over the years. And you always just blow me away with your capacity to keep pushing through, but to do it with such grace and your ability to continue to create. Because Meg actually is the owner and creator of the brand Evoe, which, by the way, if you're into natural skincare, which you should be, I have never met a company with the level of integrity that you guys have in that company. It's just phenomenal. And I think that was the first thing that blew me away.
You were like in the ingredients. Real.
So, you're just this incredible creator despite the storms that life has brought your way.
I think I have to be creative to get through it.
I agree.
Otherwise,
that's where the inspiration
I'm just in the corner rocking.
Yes, it's true. And we do that sometimes too.
We do that. That's totally allowed.
So, one of your latest creations. Yes. I have to say, guys, I barely jump on Facebook and really actually focus on what I'm looking at. I don't have that much time for it anymore. But I've scrolled past this image many times before I realised, that's Meg's. I'm like, this book has been so needed in my life. Why now? Why not 10 years ago?
I just didn't have the capacity either.
But when I saw it was you, I'm just like, oh my God, you have to tell me more about this. You have to come and talk to us about this. So maybe you can just start by sharing, what is this and how did it come about?
That's a really good story, actually, because it was all for the sake of my own sanity, I think, because I'd just been on such a roller coaster ride and being sleep deprived and a new mum and having gone through all this grief in my life as well. My emotions and my hormones were just all over the place, and burnout was just like constantly like edging closer and closer. So I realised that the thing that was consistent in my life was my monthly cycle. And instead of resisting it, I could like learn a bit and And
because you find, as a powerful creator and business owner and mother, I find my cycle at times determines, not at times, always determines the level that I can show up as. Totally. And I often find myself fighting the urge to at times just want to be unseen and to retreat. But our job requires us to be so public and to step up, and that can be a challenge.
Yeah. So I actually felt like I was in perpetual PMT. Like my hormones just weren't bouncing back. I was like, where's the happy Meg? Like I'm just not, I could just not balance out. So that actually took unplugging, like really disciplined unplugging, to just get a little bit more reserve back so that I could take the next steps. And the next steps were just more study and learning. But I also really missed my own sense of sexuality, and I was like, where is it? You know, where's my mojo? And so that
post baby.
So that was my motivation as well, was to be a sane human. And
it's always a good motivation. That's been my motivation over the years too. Just be sane. Just be normal.
To hold my baby and not want to drop it. And to know who I was as a sexual being again. And I don't think I ever really had a sense of awareness of that. You know, I didn't really have good mentors or women to guide me through this phase, like the becoming a woman phase. And so I see that so much more now. And
I really want to bring these kind of talks to this channel. Actually, I'm a little bit nervous to step into that, but it's needed.
I was like having nightmares about sharing this. Like I literally thought I was going to be killed for sharing. Like that was the dream. Someone was coming up the driveway to kill me for sharing this information, because it's not new, and it's been, you know, in our culture for a long time, but the last few hundred years we just missed the knowledge. So I just
been so suppressed.
And then it's been like this red tent kind of goddessy vibe, and I just wanted to put it into a language that was more modern. But
it needs to be normalized, not just this hip thing that hippies know about.
Like moon cycle, and I mean that's why there's all the different like moon time, I love that time of month. I heard another one, on the blocks.
Oh my god,
like she's on the blocks.
Some of them are so cringeworthy. Actually, I use the word cycle because I actually even struggle with the word period. Maybe just because of my own upbringing and it not being celebrated and so normal, it just has a yucky feel to it, which shouldn't be that way.
I know,
I'm very conscious of that, but it's so I just want to say as well, I have purchased a copy of this book to give away today. So what we'd like you to do is to share this on your social media channels, share what you loved about it, tag Meg and tag myself, and next week I will draw this and give this away. Great. So, and there's also a special, before we dive into it, you have a special running right now.
Yeah, it's just 2 for $40. Yeah. But we're kind of nearly sold out. But there's more coming.
Okay, they're nearly sold out, guys.
I was like, we better order more books.
I probably would say do not wrap this up and give it to your husband for Christmas. Yeah. Probably not the way to share it.
I actually think, I almost feel like saying women shouldn't buy this and give it to their partners.
Or maybe women buy it and read it and just kind of have it on the bedside table. Perhaps that would generate some curiosity.
I'm
Tag your husband in the comments. No, do not do that, ladies. Thought you might like this. Thought you might find this
exciting. The guys might like all the when it comes to touch stuff, because there's
that's how you can motivate them. More sex is always going to motivate them.
There's these sections in the book, and it's like, during winter, when it comes to touch, don't grab her ass as she's bending down to get the washing, like that, when you're bleeding.
Right. Okay, so we need, so let's get into the content, right? So I love how you've broken it up into seasons and also related it to a cart, so men can really get their head around it. It's so user-friendly, this information. Before we get into it, I just want to share a story from one of my past relationships, because I think that will set the scene a little bit of vulnerability, because I know you resonated with it. Yeah. I'm sure other women will. Obviously we all learn through our relationships, and we're all becoming more conscious over time and hopefully learning to communicate better and all of those things. There's one relationship in particular that I felt quite traumatized by in terms of this information in the book. I've always I feel like a man's job when they're really in their conscious, no ego state is to be that firefighter, because the nature of a woman is to be like the weather, unpredictable. And that's what men find so attractive, but it's also what confuses the fuck out of them and frustrates them, right? It's like they love that. They want you to be a little bit crazy, but not that crazy, not that unpredictable. But, if they can learn to hold space and when the fire is coming, don't be the arsonist. Is that the word? Don't be that. Be the firefighter. Don't put fuel on the fire. Be the firefighter who holds space so that it doesn't engage in the woman. Because there are times where we do feel crazy. We don't understand ourselves and it's hormones. And we need to take a certain amount of a lot of responsibility around our behaviour. It's not saying that your behaviour is excusable.
Yeah. We're not allowed to be a bitch.
No, 100%. Yeah. But a man can also go, okay, hang on, she's actually not in her right mind right now, so I'm not going to engage with this. Yeah. And that takes a very conscious man to put his ego down and not make fire with fire, I think. And, there have been times in my life where I've literally been on my hands and knees begging for empathy and compassion and space to be held. And rather than that, what I get is someone who has probably, I don't know if they've taken joy in pushing me off the cliff. I just couldn't comprehend it. But it was very distressing, that experience. And so that's where when I see this book, I think when you're in a relationship, you need to be able to see each other. You need to be able to see each other in your best moments and your worst moments.
The shades.
And to be accepting of that and to be able to love someone and hold space through those worst moments with understanding and with communication. And that's where I see the power of this book. It just, because I think many women are not conscious enough to put it into words themselves and communicate.
Yeah. And that's what this process was for me. The way that the book came about was I'd had this conversation about my cycle with my girlfriends, lots of girlfriends.
Yeah.
And we get it.
Yeah.
But I had never really spoken to a man about it.
And
so I met this guy.
Because I feel like you can know, but they don't get it. They don't get that there is a part of this that's out of my control. A part of this is something happening in my body, and I fucking hate myself in this moment. I don't like
this. They really don't understand what's going on. They haven't had the education either. And so I met this young guy, and we gelled really well, and he's quite humorous. And I was telling him about my tea caravan and these girly chats we were having, and he's going, oh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall with one of those chats. And I said, well, actually, I'm doing this study of myself through each week of my menstrual cycle and how it relates to my sexuality, and I'd really love to be able to talk to a guy about it just to see how it lands, because I kind of learn by teaching.
Yes.
And I said, would you be willing for that? And he was like, fuck yeah. He goes, I don't understand my flatmate. I don't understand my girlfriend. The chicks at work are just like, what? And so he said I would be really willing to learn. Yeah. And so every week he'd turn up and he'd be really mindful and really honouring of it, which helped me. But I did have to set some boundaries. I said, you can't be mucking around doing something else. I need your undivided attention because I'm learning. And every time I held back, he'd be like, come on, what, hang on, say that again. And so he was really encouraging, and that I just got so much out of that. And then I shared that with Asher, who runs men's groups in Melbourne. He's an old friend of mine. He was like, shit, that sounds awesome. You should totally come to the men's group and talk about it. I was like, hell no.
Yeah,
that is so personal, Asher. I'm like, I barely just told you about it. He was like, I think it would be really good. And I do trust him, and I was going to Melbourne anyway, and he said, come on. And so he said, they're a really conscious group of guys. I agreed to it, and then I went, what the fuck am I doing? I need to write notes and a diagram. And so I started writing, and then 2 days later I had pretty much that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So let's give people obviously we'd love you guys to grab a copy of the book and really, you know, experience it and delve into it for your own peace of mind, not just, I think we need to understand ourselves.
It is really good for women too.
Yeah, I think so many women are disconnected from their bodies, and there's many reasons why.
Yeah, that's a can of worms.
Yeah, it really is. So we probably won't go down that that rabbit hole today.
But at least, starting with our biology.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that's something that you kind of can't argue with. It'd be like saying, no, Storm, you can't rain today.
Yes.
Like, we can't argue. And if we just stop resisting, you know, path of least resistance, there's wisdom there. There's wisdom in those cliches. So I do, that's sort of where I got to. I didn't want to go into all these other modalities and things that I could do. It just felt too, it was somebody else's opinion, whereas this was my own navigation.
And I think when you get in touch with that, you can also plan your life around that. Like, I've been given advice, and I'm not good at this, and my business doesn't really allow that much flexibility, but, you know, if you want to plan an event, say, and you've got to be centre stage, don't plan it for the week of your
day
cycle.
one. No, it's spring, summer when you're feeling magnetic.
Yeah, there's times where I'm like, give me anything, I'm good to go. You know, it's funny, in my last cycle, I had so much anxiety around stuff that normally I would have zero care about. And luckily I had enough consciousness to go, you know what, just park this. It's going to pass. I'm not in my right mind. I would not normally be stressed about this stuff. Whereas when you're disconnected from your body, you're buying into those moments, and you can label yourself with someone who has anxiety or depression.
Yes,
or,
I put that in there actually, like, beware that just because you're on this roller coaster of emotions doesn't mean you've got like a mental condition. Yeah. So, I mean, you might. Let's be honest.
Let's just say we're all crazy, a level of crazy, but it's awareness where that's the first step to recovery.
And not feeling like you need to fix anything. Like, that was one of the most liberating moments writing this book, and understanding myself as going, actually, it's all welcome. Like, that crazy chick is welcome, and the homeless, deprived, cynical old lady is welcome, and the girl that thinks she's not good enough, you're all welcome to sit here, but I'm in charge now. Like, I'm the grown up, I'm going to be taking the lead, but you're all welcome. And that just took so much pressure off, thinking that I need to fix those.
It is like liberating. Like, my dad always likes to joke. I don't know that he listens to these, but if he does, hi Dad. But he's always making jokes about all women are crazy. And I just agree with him. I'm like, it's liberating just to go, you know what, we are. Like, we all have a level of crazy. But I think it's your awareness and how you navigate that and embrace that. That is the difference of whether you do crazy shit in a relationship or whether you actually are able to create that flow and, you know, I guess in a way, cultivate the better parts of yourself and learn coping mechanisms.
Self-regulation.
Yes. When you're not, which we talk a lot about on this. Okay, so I want you to share a little bit about maybe just some education around what's in the book. Is there some stuff that maybe you can share?
So, like you said, it goes through this. I've broken the 30-day cycle, 28-day cycle into 4 weeks, and each week is a season. So you start with your bleeding week, which is winter. So that makes sense. Like, it's, you just want to wrap yourself up. You want to stay closer to home if you can, and to unplug if you can, even if it's just for an hour. Ideally it'd be the whole day, but that's just not a luxury we have. But even an hour of concentrated unplug and just a little bit more slowness in that week will build up your reserves for the rest of the months to come.
And how would a man show up in winter?
So he wouldn't have big conversations about the budget and the kids disciplining and all those like nitty gritty and your mother and like just those hard conversations. He just would go, I'll do that next week. Not this week. He would make dinner. Would be nice. He would, if you had to be in a social situation and he knew you were in your bleeding time, it would be really nice for him to just consistently have his arm on your back. to sometimes like check in with you okay, babe?
Yeah.
And if he could see
that
there was
I'm melting
I know,
hearing
right? This is my man. If there was someone in the social scene that he knew you might feel a little bit uncomfortable with, he would like kind of step in and do the talking.
Yeah.
Like that's when he can be the knight in shining armour and just kind of step up for you a bit. I know, right? How nice of me. Lots of, like, I had a guy help me with the writing of the book as a guinea pig, and he put a heat pack in the bed before his wife got in.
Yeah.
And she turned over and looked at him and was crying and went,
I know, I want to cry listening to this stuff.
It's the nicest thing you've ever done for me. I was like, a friggin' heat pack.
It's that level of thought, of love, of empathy, of understanding. Yeah, it's like, gonna score big after this. When this cycle passes.
And that's kind of what the theme is through the book. Yeah. It's like you nurture yourself, or he nurtures you through winter, and all the rewards come later. It's like the foreplay.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So
what if a woman is being a psycho bitch? Yes. How does a man show up in this stuff?
So the best thing he could do is these 3 words.
Because we can say some freaking, some mean shit in that time where we surprise ourselves, like, who is this person?
Yeah. And I think once we start to self-regulate and monitor our cycles, we tend to not be in those situations as much. Yeah. We feel it coming and we go, and you take yourself out and you just contain and self-regulate. Yeah. But if it does explode, the best thing he can say is those 3 words: I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Oh my God.
I hear you. That's all he needs to do. It's not, but what about, and you could, and like none of that.
Those words.
Do not engage. Do not engage with the wild woman.
Don't
just
throw the fire. Why would you put fuel on that fire? You're just going to get.
Yeah, because they feel, all their wounds get triggered.
And that's where they have to understand, I think, and this is the piece, is understanding we're not really in our right minds. These are not things that we would say or do potentially at other times.
I've got a however there, but you keep going.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're able to just not personalise it. In that moment, if they have enough awareness, I'm not excusing the behaviour whatsoever. We need to self-regulate and not do that.
Yeah.
However, if it does get to that point, or the buttons have been pushed, I think a truly conscious man, and they're never going to nail it, and we have the same responsibility. If the man explodes for whatever reason, work pressure or whatever, it's being able to not personalise it, because you can only have an argument really with 2 playing partners. And when you can step back and go, hang on a minute, there's something going on for them, and this is entirely their shit, and this has nothing to do with me, that's when you really get more flow, I think, in a relationship, and better communication and less arguments.
It's easier said than done.
100%.
And so my however on that point is that usually when you explode, you're in premenstrual, you're in autumn, which I call powerful medicine time, or powerful magic time, instead of PMT. So that's actually when your filters have come down, the happy hormones have all dropped, and you're seeing things actually for how they are. Your delivery is bitter and really not appropriate, but probably what you're saying is valid. Right? So this is where
that's true.
Right? So it does become personal, because they're going, oh shit, she's right.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So what my suggestion is to take yourself out of the confronting situation, go and journal that shit down, pull out the pieces that are really valid and mean something to you, and then go back and have the conversation when you're in summer, when you're in your happy time, and you've got more tolerance and compassion, and you can deliver with honey.
Yes. That's so true. I can really remember a lot of times where there was things on my heart that I didn't have the courage to share until it was in that moment, and it was
in
never
the wild
delivered,
moment.
and it was never delivered well. It was just, I had enough fire to go like breaking point, and I'm just going to deliver it.
But if you,
it was not good.
And it does cause so much stress and tension. But
and disrespect. It is disrespectful, I think, to have that kind of delivery. Yeah.
So this is where it comes back to if you can unplug and restore and recover in your winter, you have reserves. Your reserves build up, and then you can potentially have those difficult conversations next time round.
Right.
And that's what I've noticed. I even do that at work, like when I have a confronting situation at work and I'm premenstrual or I'm about to bleed, I just go, you know what, this can wait a week. And if it can't, then that's when you do draw on the reserves from having rested and recovered. So this is kind of like a 3 months. You've got to give it 3 months for you to build up reserves and then actually start to see the benefit. I mean, you can see benefits straight away, but when you're like implementing this in your life and your work, and I've got like a 6-month plan in my calendar and I know when I'm bleeding, and I've planned trips to Melbourne and Sydney. And
it really helps to know, like, if there's times where I'm just not feeling myself and I'm feeling a little bit off kilter, I will go and check my mapping, because I think I'm having these thoughts and feelings and this doesn't feel like me, and I can go and see, okay, it's not. I just need to just ease into knowing that I'm not going to feel like this a week from now. So what's the next season?
So then it goes into spring. So you're kind of like popping your head out from under the covers. You're in a really good planning phase, because in winter, if you've had time to rest and recover, you're just kind of sitting with your wise woman and you're listening more, so that when you come into spring, you're like, I actually know what to do now. I know what I need to do. So there's a lot of clarity that comes, but you're also a little bit more flirtatious and willing to try things and initiate. And it's also a really much more playful time. It is a really good time to hang out with girlfriends and be a bit silly. And what a man can do in that time is just encourage all of that. Just enjoy seeing you in that playful, girly, like, you know, when you're like pottering around the house and you're just happy in your own world.
I love that phase. For me, I really look forward to my cycle ending and that new phase beginning, because I really feel so on fire and creative in my business. And you know, that week before, I struggle through everything. Everything feels like a push that I have to do. And I probably get through that knowing that the week or two is coming where I'm going to be embracing everything. But that's where I would say to men, and I know men have their own cycles, but I feel that they have a greater capacity to show up consistently.
They're linear.
And it's hard for them to understand. You know, there's times where I'm leading team training with hundreds of people, and if I'm in that winter phase, it is such a pull on my energy to show up with the level of inspiration that I feel is required. And there are times where it's just like, you know what, I need to lean on the masculine leadership just to be like, I can't hold this space on my own. And I think if they can understand that this is the natural flow of a woman, we don't necessarily have the capacity to show up at that degree the way they do.
It's not reasonable.
It's really
not even sustainable. Like,
it's
you might be able to fire like that.
I ruined my health doing that, actually. Trying to sustain that level of action when I was building my business.
That's burnout. And so, like, I definitely have a motivation around my nervous system and being able to maintain.
That's what I talk about, actually. It was my nervous system. It was so fried that I literally felt on the edge of a nervous breakdown.
And I think a lot of women do. I think it's we're either burnt out or we're close to it, and we're just kind of, you know, alcohol at night to wind down, coffee in the morning to wind up, and we're just on this like slippery slope of oh, how long can I do this for?
I've been on the edge many times. Okay, so that's spring and summer.
So summer, that's when you get out there and you make shit happen and you get it done, and you're on fire, you're magnetic, you can sort of take on the world. And
it's when you feel your sexiest too, right?
Definitely sexiest. And it's also a little bit dangerous, because you can feel like Superwoman, like, I can take it on, and you're like, yes to everything.
And a week later you're like, why the fuck did I say yes to that?
Overwhelmed town. It's just like overwhelmed. And that's where the tip is. So it's really important when you're in summer and you're feeling awesome and everything's rose coloured. You go, okay, whoa, just be careful here, and you just pull back a little bit, so that when you do go into autumn, you've still got capacity. And it's changed my life.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So
I used to tip over every autumn. Every autumn I'd been overwhelmed.
And you kind of realise that you put yourself in that situation, right? Yeah.
I'm the one saying yes.
Yeah.
And so once you kind of feel like, do you feel when you're going from summer into autumn, if you think about it, you're like, oh, my energy just kind of dropped.
Yeah.
And then you go, I'll just have a coffee because I want to keep the summer. I want to stay in summer forever.
Yeah, I'm addicted to that summer feeling. I'm like, what can I'm like doing a huge 10K walk in the morning. I'm at the gym. I go do yoga in the afternoon. Like, I'm like doing crazy shit to my body. I know. And then the next week, I'm like, I'm so depleted, and I hate that feeling. I resist that feeling because I really love the high energy, inspired, confident version of me, and I'm always trying to sustain that, but it's not sustainable.
It's not. And I love that version of you too, and so does your community, and so does the world. Like, we want that, and yet it's actually unreasonable. And so if we make friends with the winter version of Kira, the spring version of Kira, the summer version, and the autumn, it's like, oh, I really, like, I'm getting to know you in a much deeper, much more profound way. And I realised, like, what really
it's probably more relatable too for people to understand.
Because you can't, people are sitting there going, how does she maintain that?
Yeah. The truth is I don't. The truth is, if you actually really looked at my social media, there's times where my face is really not present on the stories and things. And then there'd be a week where you would see a lot of me.
Same. I just kind of drop out. But I have a private group called Nurture Through the Cycles, and I put my face on there on day one of bleeding. I'm like, I'm bleeding, I'm drinking tea, I got my heat pack on, and we love it. It's really nice to see and show myself in that phase. Because
that's another level of vulnerability.
That's
I'm not ready for that level. I don't know. Maybe in a group.
No makeup. Because it's a private group. So, but it's because I'm making friends with those parts of me. So in here there's where is it? It's a graph, and it's quite detailed, but it goes through all the archetypes of the seasons. So instead of it just being the spring and summer sexy, happy woman, there's also the medicine woman in autumn and the wise woman in winter. And so when you make friends with those parts of yourselves, they're actually really beneficial to the rest of your community. And what I've been having the conversation, very juicy conversation with men, is going from summer into autumn, right? So you could be having, let's say, epic sex on the kitchen table, and then she flips into autumn, and it's like, hand comes up and it's like, I need space. And he goes, I'm being rejected. And she goes, no, I just want you to look deeply in my eye and have a really meaningful connection. But she can only do that if she's recovered and restored from her winter. Then she can hold space for him in a much bigger capacity. So all that sexual energy that's being built up in summer can land. But if she's not recovered and restored, she'll be in overwhelm, and she'll be in give me space, and she'll be feeling rejected, and then it's like rah rah rah. So this is why when you stick with following the cycle for a few months, you reap so many rewards. And then he gets to know you at that level of, wow, she's like an actual goddess in autumn. And in winter, you know, you might feel inclined to, you know, he's got his head in your lap and it's really warm and beautiful, and he's feeling all nourished and nurtured by the wise mothering woman, which is what men crave too. They just want to put their head in your lap and cry. Really? Is that okay?
That's really, no, that is, I'm just thinking it's so true. Like the, I guess I can't think of another word other than style of sexual interaction that you desire definitely fluctuates with the seasons as well.
It does. And they don't know that. Like the movies don't show that. It just shows sexy, consistent spring, summer, sparkly Susie. And it's like, that's not me.
Like there's times where you just want to be taken, and then there's times where you just want deep connection, where you want to feel seen.
So I do go into how, when it comes to touch, and there's a chapter in each season about how to touch a woman when she's in each phase of that cycle. And so that's a really, juicy conversation, and
yeah,
and the men that I've spoken to love that conversation. They're like, oh, now I understand. Like they're actually
the fruits though, what I think, when men come to understand, and by the way, women, you need to, I hate using the word need, I would encourage you to invest in learning about the masculine and how to show up equally as understanding and compassionate and loving and giving towards your partner, which will be completely different, right? We're completely, one of the books I really love just to start the awareness is Way of the Superior Man.
Yeah.
I love
he's a legend.
Even to just understand the feminine. You can listen to it for free on YouTube.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
All his work's amazing. But yeah, I just feel when you show up for your partner at this kind of level that we're talking about, although you want to do it as an act of selflessness because you're doing it because you love that person, the benefits, like you will actually get more benefits. Yeah. Don't you reckon? Like the fruits of you showing up that way, like she is going to want to jump on you a lot more. She is just going to want to serve you. I don't know. That's how I show up in a relationship. I love to serve the man. Like I am very feminine, and I like, not to say that there's a one size fits all. It's just who I am in a relationship. Yeah. But when my partner is showing up for me at a high level, it just makes me melt. I just want to do everything in my power to, and I think, I don't know, even just hearing the words that you're using, it's like every woman's deepest heart's desire is to have a man see them.
That's why it was so confronting to write this book. I was like nearly vomiting with anxiety about sharing it, because this is like what I want.
Yeah. And
so it felt extremely vulnerable, and I would try it on different men who I trust and love and who are friends, and they'd be like, this is awesome, Meg. And I was like, really? Am I allowed to say, show up for me?
Yeah.
And it's sort of almost, I feel like I'm saying, you guys need to show up first.
Yeah.
And then see what happens.
Yeah.
And for the women that are really lost and, unaware of themselves and thinking that they've got to fit some Disney kind of image, I actually think it's the men that will, it's like Sleeping Beauty. Yeah. Like them actually knowing this and their women not knowing.
Because so many women feel so unsafe. With the masculine. They feel, and I'm sure that there's equal argument on the other side, but we're obviously a channel mainly speaking to women, but even I can list many times I've felt violated by the masculine.
This is a big conversation, and I'm actually I hardly had even launched this, and I was writing the next book. It's called The Art of the Unwind, and it is for women, and I really want to address how we haven't been in consent and how we haven't been listening to our bodies and a way back to that, because there's a real pain there, and we do need men to be safe, so that we can.
And them showing up like this, like to me, that's safety, like a safe space, especially when you're in autumn, winter, just to know that their arms are open for you to just crawl in and not be your best summer version in that moment, but to be seen and understood and loved anyway. Yeah.
One of the sexiest things I thought a man could say to me was, you don't need to sell me anything and you don't need to perform.
Yeah.
I was like, imagine if a man said that. Like, it's not what Disney tells me is sexy. And yet that's what I truly, when I was honest with myself, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And so this is the other part, is there's the yin and yang in both of us. And one of the things for women who aren't partnered is to self-partner. Yeah. And all women, even if you are in a partnership, it's like, have a cup of tea with your masculine self.
Yeah.
And say thanks. Like when you're in those big events and you've got to do all the rah-rah, you could sit down with yourself and say thanks for really showing up and holding it together and getting all the logistics done. And now you can just chill for a minute because I need to be feminine and relax, because sometimes it's hard for us to turn off, right? Because we're just in go mode. And so it is really nice to acknowledge that that part of you has really been looking after you, and now it's time to unwind, because I find it could take me 4 hours to actually relax. Like, I don't know about you, but
if I'm switched on, and I, you know, in a real big building phase of my business, I was nightly doing team trainings to a lot of people, and I really suffered with my sleep patterns because it would take so long to come down off of that high. And now I have routines that help me to come down if I need to. But yeah, even on that piece, another thing that I've really learned over the last 12 months especially is self-acknowledgement. Being able to praise yourself so that you don't need it. Because one of the best things you can do for your relationship is to not need anything from your partner. You know, to be able to give those things to yourself so that you're just meeting on an equal playing field where you're just giving to one another equally. Rather than rather than needing constantly his approval, his admiration. And it's beautiful to have those things, and you want those things, but not out of need. I think desire and need are two different things.
And I think that's the self-care aspect that probably was my lifeline that got me to this point, was just at night being able to put my oil on my face, look myself in the eye and say, good job, mama, or thank you, or whatever it was, and then the tears would come. And it's like, really,
especially for the independent mums.
I come out of putting Willem to bed, and it's taken me an hour to get him to sleep, and I've got a candle in the hallway in front of this mirror. I light it every night, and I just say, good job, lady, because there's no one else saying that, and Willem doesn't have the capacity to say that. So that was a really that made me whole again, that practice. So, you know, the whole thing about the book is really that there's many paths, and it's a resource. This is just one of many resources. And I think when you're busy and active and out in the world and kids and family and business, you kind of need all the tools you can get. And
it's ongoing, you know, self-growth is ongoing. It's not like, oh, I'm suddenly conscious now, I've done all the work. No, just another layer.
And just using like if you had to go to a big event when you were bleeding or something like that, if there were little things that you could do to nurture yourself beforehand, during, it's even as little as when you walk from there to the bathroom, you walk a bit slower. Just something, or you let yourself sink into your belly as if, you know, when you were pregnant and you walk, and it was okay to have a big belly, and you just kind of let your belly out and you walk and you move your hips and walk like that. You know, little things like that that just get you into your, like, make peace with your womb and what's going on.
Someone's just said you sound like Sarah Shaw. I wonder if they know that you guys are sisters. This is Sarah's sister. I don't know if you know that or you're just saying that.
Hey, we do sound like each other. That's true. Renee Howard.
I'm not sure if there's been questions, but there's definitely been a whole lot of loving this.
Yes.
Is there anything that what did I think of before? It's gone now. How would you recommend, because I've no doubt that every woman listening to this is like, that's how I want my husband to show up for me. How would they inspire their man to pick up this book? That's a hard question.
Yeah, because I have heard a man say, I think it was John Wineland, he's quite a renowned men's coach. I think this is going to get out to some really big men's groups soon. There's quite a lot of men going, what is this book?
And a lot of great coaches I follow on Instagram too, actually, that would probably love this.
I actually think if we could put it in the hands of the right men, they would be the one.
So there you go. If you're listening and you have the capacity to help with that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I mean, there's men's festivals and men's groups that are asking me to come and talk and men's wellbeing and all these different groups that they're so proactive with supporting men. They just read the title and go, oh my God, we need this. Like, where has this been? This could have saved my marriage.
I honestly think it's the first thing I said to Meg.
I had another guy say it the day before you. Yeah. Because I feel like I have to ring my ex-wife and apologise. Yeah. And he had tears.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're going to save a lot of marriages.
And really, at the end of the day, it was just like, if we can just get along better, that would be awesome.
Oh, 100%. And it's the flow-on effect, you know, to imagine the impact on children, to watch a man show up so compassionately, and to not only does that filter the energy into the children in the environment they're being raised in, but also showing little girls how they can be treated, and boys how to treat women.
So I have a 4-year-old, and you know, he always wants to wrestle. I'm a solo mum, so it's like, mate, mummy's in her bleeding time. And I just say it, and he's like, you know, and it's been a few months of me saying that, and I had really tender breasts, and he was like, are your boobies tender, mummy? And I'm like, yes, they are. He's like, are you nearly in your bleeding time? This is a 4-year-old. And he's like, okay, I be gentle. And
I have those conversations with my girls too, because they love to sleep in bed with me. They're very affectionate, and there's times where it's very painful for them to be on me, and there's times where I'm crankier, and I find it harder to be reasonable when I'm parenting. And I've found
a nice way to say it.
There's times where I'm a crazy bitch. So I really take on the age appropriate level, of course, but how can I just be completely honest and normalize life at all times with them? Because I am by no means going to be the perfect parent, and usually it's cycle dependent when I'm not being the perfect parent. And I guess my philosophy is that if I can be honest with them and show them reality, and for them to know that I'm not perfect, and not to use it as an excuse either. But I think there'll be a level of compassion and understanding for me, but also for themselves as they come about to those cycles. You know, one of my daughters is starting to, you know, go through some changes. She doesn't have her cycle yet, but I can see the moods and all of those things. And I just want her to feel really safe. I want her to know that it's normal. I want her to be in touch with her body around it. I want her to feel that a space is held. But there's nothing worse than those memories of like hearing a parent mutter that she must have her period, or, you know, I don't want them to feel that. I want them to feel that it's something to celebrate, and that there is space held for them the way that I would love space to be held for me. I want to be that for my girls.
Well, you can't get much more motivation to honour yourself than to show your girls how it's done, because they are just modelling everything you do. And that was a big thing for me. It was like, oh, if I don't show him how to care for myself and not be, and just get out of that martyr all the time, he's never going to know that. He's never going to know how to be with a woman. And I feel like his wife is going to come up to me one day and say, thank you so much.
Just the compassion. Like, I got a message from Maddie this week, because I was open and honest that mummy's in a lot of pain today. Like, I really struggled on my last call. I think my face said it all. My head was pounding, and I just was not at all, you know, in a state that I was excited to be on that call. And I was just open with the girls that I was struggling that day. And I got this beautiful message from Madeline. Hi, mummy, I just want to make sure that you're feeling better, and I wish I could give you a cut. And just beautiful, it just cultivates compassion in them, I think. And which connection brings more connection. You cherish those moments.
I do. And I mean, even for your calls, like how could you be more gentle with yourself or share? Are most of those people on the call women?
Yes, they are. So I probably should have said something. Well, it was multi-level. I've had an issue with my back, which has been playing up, and it goes into my head a bit. And so there's times where if I'm not my bubbly self, there's usually a reason behind it. But, you know, I do enjoy having. There's two sides to it. I think you do need to be mindful of the pressure you put on yourself at certain times, but I also find the pressure drives me where I need to go. Like if I don't have things booked in and locked in and making me show up, then I'm not growing and moving forward. So it's hard to find that kind of balance.
Yeah, I think that's why the car analogy is good, because you just change gears a little bit. So you just ease off the pressure.
So, well, actually what I did is I had a conversation with Marina, who I was interviewing, and I said, look, I'm off my game today. I've got a pounding headache. I'm struggling to find my words now. And she's like, oh, I can talk underwater. But she's like, I'll carry us. It's all good. So,
and this is where girlfriends, so
Yeah.
that's in the book quite a bit too. It's not putting all the pressure on your man to be all things. It's like leaning into your girlfriends and your elders to say, I really need support here. And it's not just one or two. It's like I have Team Meg, you know, so that I don't feel like a burden, because sometimes I'm messy and I really need support from lots of people. And it sort of shares the load a bit, because, you know, let's be honest, we're pretty messy sometimes. And if a can of worms is opened, it's opened.
Yeah.
And you need people around you that can be empathic and listen. So you got to choose the people, right, that you want to share that with, because then you get a whole lot of people trying to fix you, or you know, sometimes you just
need to know who
heard.
the right person is to share your stuff. And that's where it's nice to have friends who know how to hear your messiness, but they also know where the time is to say, okay, so how are we going to be resourceful now?
Let's get you out of that. So
they're the perfect friends. The ones who can call you on your shit when you need to as well.
I think one of my processes too, like we all say, fill your cup, right? But I've been saying, well, I think you need to empty your cup.
Right.
Like empty some of that shit out, and some of the things that aren't nourishing you, the people that aren't nourishing you. Just, it doesn't mean you have to drop everything. It's just sort of like creating the healthy boundary, giving it a little bit of distance, staying in connection, but just saying, I'm at capacity right now. Like, what if you could just say that? I'm at capacity right now. I'll get back in touch next week. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's where the best friends, there's no like pressure.
It shouldn't be.
Of like when you caught up or how many times you've checked in, and you know, like, cause there's times where, especially for me this year, there's been a lot of times where I just need to withdraw and I don't have the capacity to give as much. You know?
And I think it's okay to say that out loud, and especially in the role that you're in. It kind of gives permission for all the other women who are going through the same shit that you're going through. So,
I really try and verbalize it because it normalizes it for everyone, as including me, to be seen, you know, because it's easy to make assumptions. I think.
We're getting brave. Like,
we're
really growing up.
Yeah,
we?
I know.
Grown up since 12 years ago. I think.
Oh God, we're worlds apart if we were. Oh my goodness.
We'll giggle in 5 years' time as well. When we look back on this, like, it feels, like, since I wrote this, I actually feel like I know less. You know, when I wrote a book and now I know nothing. So it's definitely
an ongoing evolution, that's for sure. So we're going to put a link in the comments to someone's just put your Evoe link up there, to you have like a sample section,
a short version,
right?
which isn't that short, but
I know it's some really good information in there. Definitely encourage you guys to get the hard copy. You can get the ebook version too, right? Of the whole book.
The paperback is kind of cool,
nothing like
because
having a real book.
It's got pictures. Like, I just love all the, and that's because I did have a much different layout, and a man just went, I need more pictures. There's too much writing. And so that's why with every little thing that there's suggestions for them, there's a photo.
I actually did think of that before I read it, like how many men are invested to sit down and read. But it's so user friendly. Like, it's not like reading a novel at all.
No.
It's like clicking through a magazine, easy. Really. Like,
and there's lots of resources, because
I saw that.
It's sort of like, what do we do now? And I'm just offering a path. And there's many paths within that.
So we will put that link into the comments when we're done. So a free little gift for you guys. We'll also put the link where they can purchase the special in the comments. The two for $40, right? The books. What else was I going to say? So just in case you missed it at the beginning, I am going to give a free copy away. So if you guys can screenshot, share on your social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, tag us in. Meg Forrester, Meg Kurtz, you've changed your name, Meg Kurtz Forrester, and Kira Love, you can tag me. Anything you want to share to wrap it up?
Well, I guess if there are any men that you feel that are, you know, leaders of men who can get this, they're probably the best people to share it with as well.
Definitely.
And Yeah, stay tuned for Art of the Unwind, because that's going to be a good one for women, because it's sort of like once I got into my cycle, then there was a deeper layer.
Yeah.
And now I feel ready to share that as well. So.
Maybe we'll have you back to talk about sex a little more.
Certainly the hot topic at the moment.
It really is, isn't it?
I walk in and she goes, "How you going?" And I'm like, well.
It's a really big open-ended question.
Oh, how are we going for time? Should we wrap up?
Yeah, I think we should wrap up. I think we're done.
Were there any questions, or we
can go back through the comments? Yeah,
cool.
Sorry guys, we've got a lot going on. It was hard to track the questions. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. Blair says we need pictures. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, I'm sure Meg wouldn't mind you reaching out to her on her social media as well. Please help us get this message out there. I definitely have a few male coaches in mind that I'm certainly going to share this with. This information is so needed. And women, I really want to encourage you, if you have, first of all, love without expectation. But if there is a part of you that is expecting your man to read this and step up in this way, I encourage you to go out and do the reading and the research on how you can show up for him, because someone has to go first.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe your relationship is at a point where there's a lot of tension and no one wants to step up. And I think, you know, if you can show up in a way that is serving his needs, then his heart is going to open more to wanting to take the time to do things like this.
That's the undefended heart. Like, someone has to do it first. And as long as you're nourishing yourself and standing on your own ground and what really matters to you, then you're safe.
Love that.
Thank
you so much
my
for
pleasure,
joining me.
So
fun. Let us know what topics you guys want to delve into with Meg. She's not afraid of the juicy ones. You're going to blush when I say that. All right, thank you guys. We're not a good influence on each other. All right, thank you so much, guys. And we'll come through and answer any of your questions. And we'll see you again soon. Bye. Let me end this one.